than it is at other times when it's farther away. And when it's close, it's known as perigee, and when it's far away, it's known as apogee. Now, when the moon is close to the Earth, that results in a better chance that the moon is going to completely cover the sun. But if it's farther away, it won't cover the entire sun. So this would be the total eclipse in this situation, or this would be the annular eclipse. So why does this happen? Why is it possible that the sun gets blocked? Well, we just happen to be in a time in the life or the history of the Earth where the sun's diameter is about 400 times wider than that of the moon, but the sun is also about 400 times farther away from Earth. And I'll show you this as an example, looking at all three bodies. And here you can see that. You can see from the vantage point here on Earth in the total darkness, you'll see that your vision will catch the edge of the moon on both sides and then literally block out the entire disk of the sun. Now, the big question is, will the solar eclipse ever end? And unfortunately, yes, it will. If you're around 600 million years from now, you will no longer see a solar eclipse. And the reason being is the moon is actually moving away from the Earth about 1.5 inches per year. So it will take about another 600 million years before the last solar eclipse. Now, how often do eclipses occur? The orbit around of the moon around Earth is, like I said, it's kind of an oval shape like this. Now, we actually experience 2 solar eclipses per year and 2 lunar eclipses per year. But the thing is, they never occur at the same place every year. I want to go back to when was the last time a total eclipse actually affected Ohio. Now, there's a lot of history here that led to some really strange events that occurred over time. And I've got a few notes here, if you don't mind, to help myself keep this all straight. Now, we have to go all the way back to when the state of Ohio became a state, and that was back in 1803. And we were at that time on the western edge of the advancement of the settlers moving from east to west. And there was a leader, he was a Shawnee chief named Tecumseh. And his nickname was also Shooting Star. Now, the northwest Ohio, portion of Ohio, the territory belonged to the Shawnees. And at the time, there was, as the settlers moved in, they decided to set up a treaty with the tribal people that were living in the area. So they set up the Greenville Treaty that allowed the Native Americans to live in peace amongst the settlers. Now, there was a problem. If you go a little further west, over towards the Indiana Territory, there was a general named William Henry Harrison. Some of you might recognize the name as a future president of the time of the United States. And he had a little trouble with some of the natives going on, especially Tecumseh and his brother, and I'll show you why in a minute. And his brother's name was Tenskwatawa. Now, I'm not good at Indian names, so if you know how to pronounce it, please shout it out. I'd be more than happy to hear it. But from now on, I will call him the prophet, just to keep things simple. Now, Tecumseh was a very well-educated man. He knew how to read. He knew how to speak many languages as well. And that was very important as these events all unfolded. Now, the Tecumseh and his brother, the prophet, fought against this treaty because they didn't like it. They didn't like this problems that were occurring because of the intermingling of the peoples. And as a matter of fact, his brother, who was nicknamed the prophet, actually woke up one day in a drunken stupor and claimed to all the tribal people, saying that he got to meet the Great Spirit. And the Great Spirit said to the people, or said to him, he says, we need to get away from these advancing settlers. You know, we got to go back to the Indian ways, the way we know. They're causing infiltration into our way of life. So then the problem is for Harrison was this started to rile up all the Indians and started to cause some trouble, and Harrison didn't like that. So in the spring of 1806, he got fed up with the prophet saying all these things, claiming that he had a connection to the higher powers. And then the prophet was, like I said, gaining the native followers, and Harrison decided to sit down and write a letter to Tecumseh and the prophet. See, Harrison knew a lot about the Bible, and he knew a lot about the miracles that happened. So he said, if you have all these magical powers, I want you to do a few things for me. And he said to the prophet, he said, I want to see you stop the moon, or make the sun stand still, make the moon alter its course, and the river cease to flow. Well then, Tecumseh and his brother decided to meet in the tent, and they talked about it a little bit, and they said, we will go ahead and do this. So they came out, and as the prophet came out, he yelled out to the mass of people, he said that he would darken the sky, a cloudless sky, and the stars would come out in the daytime, birds will return to their nests, and nocturnal animals will emerge from their lairs. And the one thing, but he also said this would all occur in 50 days in advance, on June 16, 1806. Now, as a meteorologist, I would like to know how he was able to forecast a clear, sunny day 50 days in advance when we couldn't even get it right the next day. So, okay. Well, their prediction came true. The entire event occurred exactly as they said it would. And according to all the research that I read, there was one problem. Harrison missed a letter that was written back in the Louisville area, or not a letter, but a newspaper article that stated that in the next year, meaning 1806, that there would be an eclipse, and he didn't see that. But the thing is, the two brothers, you know, a lot of the historians, they're not sure how Tecumseh and his brother knew about these events, how they were going to occur. But they said Tecumseh knew how to read. He may have carried an almanac with him, and he knew about the events. He had a lot of connections with the settlers, and he was able to talk to them in their native languages. And possibly one of them told him what was going on, or perhaps he read the newspaper that a general should have known about. So, unfortunately, that made Harrison very mad that his predictions all came true, because it really riled up all the Indians and caused a lot of problems. And from there, the battle of, I forgot what it was called, I'm sorry. Oh yeah, there it was. There was a battle that took place, it was Tippecanoe, I'm sorry. And that took place in 1811, and then following that came the War of 1812. So all because of a solar eclipse, they basically created a war. Now there was another problem that occurred as well, is most of the Indians settled down around Greenville, Ohio here, and the path of totality of that event was further north. And what the historians were saying is, how could all of these events have occurred if they're down south out of the totality area? But they think maybe they might have been further north when all of this took place. Now, another prophecy that occurred at the same time was a woman, an Indian woman, who predicted that a great darkness would soon fall over earth. Now, that riled up all the Indian tribes. They got scared, they got nervous, and they assumed that she was doing witchcraft, which was a no-no back then. So they sentenced her, unfortunately, to death by strangling, and they decided to hang her out on a branch over the Rocky River, where her body was left hanging until it eventually fell into the river. And it was left there because they wanted to be an example that they would not tolerate witchcraft. And unfortunately, the pioneers thought the end of the world was coming, the judgment day was coming, because the events that she predicted actually came true. And everything started to occur right around 11 a.m. and continued on through about noon when the totality occurred. And here was the path of the total eclipse through Ohio in 1806. And like I said, it occurred on June 16th, and the time of totality was around noon and was across northern Ohio all the way into New York and onto the East Coast. Now this is going to be the path of the total eclipse, where we'll see here on April 8th. It'll extend all the way up from Mexico through Ohio and then on up into Maine. And you can see Madison's right in the middle, so we're at a good vantage point here to see this. Now, let's look at the difference between a partial versus a solar eclipse. A partial eclipse is where the moon passes over part of the sun. And a total eclipse is where the moon completely covers the disk of the sun. And the reason why I wanted to show you that is, here we go. Here's the path that we're going to see April 8th up through Ohio. But as you go out further and further away from the path of totality through here, you notice that the sun is partially covered. So they're not going to see as much of the sun covered as you get up towards Seattle and maybe down here towards like Miami and Cuba and those areas. So we happen to be fortunate to see this here this year. Now, everyone in North America should see at least a partial eclipse, meaning here we are in the total eclipse, and then this is what they'll see, depending on how far away from the path that we'll see. Now, the big question is, here we are in northern Ohio, will it be clear? And I'll get to that in a moment. Okay, now for the time here, I looked it up to see what it would be right here in Madison, Ohio. The event will begin around 2 p.m. Here, and the maximum will take place at 3:16 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, and the duration of totality will be 3 minutes and 48 seconds. And then the whole event will end at about 4:29 p.m. Now, everyone can participate in the event. We can all, enjoy what's going to happen, because this will be an event that will take place in our lifetime, and that'll be it. If we don't travel, we'll never see another one again. And we'll talk a little bit about safety ways of viewing the event. Now, I want to play this video. This is the reason why I can't stress the safety as much as possible.
As the solar eclipse approaches, we have a warning about the dangers of looking directly at the sun. A man from Luzerne County claims he permanently damaged his eyesight trying to look at a solar eclipse several decades ago. Newswatch 16's Jessica Albert spoke with him today. She's live in the Wyoming Valley newsroom. Jessica.
Jim, that man is from Pittston Township. He says he damaged his right retina of his right eye looking into a solar eclipse in the 1960s. He's sharing his story with Newswatch 16 and hopes that it will help prevent people from damaging their eyesight in next week's eclipse. In the 1960s, James Holt of Pittston Township was only about 10 years old. He says back then he was preparing to watch a partial solar eclipse.
We had heard that if you want to see the eclipse, you can look through negatives of a picture. That dates me how old I am, but you look through the negatives, get several of them stacked together, and you can see it and shouldn't have a problem.
Holt was able to view the eclipse with no problem. Years later, he says he noticed an issue with his eyesight. It turns out he damaged a portion of his retina in his right eye from viewing the eclipse.
If using both eyes, I don't have a problem with it at all. Just using the right eye, like I say, looking at small print or something close up, small, it distorts it.
So you end up with that shadow on the earth. So that's the basic idea of the eclipse.
Dr. Heidi Manning is the Dean of the College of Arts and Sciences at Misericordia University. She used to work with NASA.
To have it go on the continental United States is not that common. To have it go all the way across the continent, even less common. And that's why this is such a big deal, is so many people are able to see it.
As the eclipse approaches, she wants to warn people about properly protecting their eyes when viewing the eclipse. She suggests you purchase protective glasses or use a box or another homemade device to view the eclipse without directly looking into the sun.
Don't be confused that, well, 75% of the sun is blocked, so it's not that big a deal. There still is a tremendous amount of light coming, and it can cause damage to your eye in just fractions of a second. So you never want to look directly at the sun.
It is a fascinating thing to look at, but be safe. That's the main thing, is be safe. Don't ruin your eyes. It's not worth ruining your eyes over.
And Jim, Dr. Manning says that if you are going to buy protective sunglasses for the eclipse, to make sure you're buying them from a reputable store that's selling glasses.
Okay, she did mention the reputable source. Now, the one thing you have to be careful, I do have it written down here, there is an ISO number that is written on the glasses themselves. And you have to make sure that they're a legit company and they're not just throwing this number on there. And the other thing is too, you want to make sure if you use these glasses, there's no scratches, no cracks, anything that would allow this light to get through, because the last thing you want to do is damage your eyesight. Okay, we just talked about the safety glasses. Apparently they were handing them out here at the library for this event. And the other thing you can do, it actually is safer. You can actually take a shoebox or a cereal box and you puncture a little hole on the one end and you puncture another little hole and you look down inside the one hole and allow the sunlight to pass through the side as if kind of like this, so that you can see the reflection of the light inside the box. And I'll show you here in a minute. The other thing you can do is, like you see in the upper right, here they have a calendar where you can see the light passing through little holes onto a paper. This way you're not looking directly at the sun itself. Now the best way to view the sun or this eclipse occurring is through a live streaming event, so you can watch it on your phone, and that way you can spend the time observing what's going on around you. I'll show you in a minute here of what's going to happen. Now, once I was just mentioning yes, you can use the glasses that are made for solar eclipses. Do not use sunglasses, they're not enough. So leave those out as well. And here's an example where they're holding the calendar up and to allow the light to pass through the holes, and the kids are able to see the eclipse occurring on the paper. And here's the example of where they used a cereal box. They punctured a hole just to the left of his face there on the top of the box, and then that light shines down inside the box, and then you look through the other hole, you can see it towards the bottom of the box. And you can see there's a shoe box. That's another example. He's pointed the end of it towards the sun. Now the other thing you can do is, as I was saying, you can watch the eclipse take place on your phone while you're observing what's going around using this website. You can see it. I looked at it today. They're actually doing a countdown as we speak until it actually occurs. If you want this, let me know and I'll give it to you at the end. Now, the other thing the eclipse is going to impact is the home opener for the Cleveland Guardians. I was scared out of my mind I was going to say Cleveland Indians, and I made it. But anyways, the game time was actually moved to 5:10 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, and the gates open at 2 p.m. So if any of you are going to the game, Make sure you allow yourself plenty of time. They're expecting heavy loads of traffic. They're encouraging people to use the rapid transit to get there. What they're hoping to do is just allow people to come in and enjoy the eclipse well before the game actually starts. Now, another thing what's going to happen is, in the beginning I showed you, as the eclipse occurred, you noticed that the birds and all the daytime creatures were making noises, but they got quiet, and then all of the nighttime creatures came out. There is some research going on that they want you to document what you see, what you hear, what's going on around you, where you're at, and then go ahead and send it to this website here, and so they can document this. If you want this, let me know at the end of the presentation. And here's one of the biggest impacts. If you're going to be outside observing this, make sure you bring a jacket with you, depending on if it's going to be like, say, 70 degrees, you're going to be sitting around maybe a short sleeve shirt on in the middle of the afternoon and find that you're going to get rather cold, because there have been cases where during the total eclipse, the temperature has dropped about 15 degrees. And the other thing that they noticed is the winds actually decrease. And the reason why is the atmosphere thinks it's becoming nighttime, and normally during the evening we set up what is called an inversion. And normally the air temperature near the ground is warm, and then as you go up it gets colder and colder the higher you go up. But during I'm sorry? But as the evening takes place, what happens is an inversion sets up where the temperature actually starts to rise for a little bit and then gets colder again and creates a little cap. If you notice smokestacks, you'll notice that the smoke rises and then it flattens out. Well, it's hitting that inversion, it can't rise any further. And that's what you might notice, and when that happens, it actually causes the winds near the ground to calm down, even though the winds aloft are very strong. So keep an eye on those things as they occur. Remember that jacket, because you'll likely need it. Now, as far as taking photos, don't take your camera and hold your eye into it. It's the same as looking into the sun as if you're looking with the naked eye. That's not a good idea. Make sure that you have a special filter that is designed for solar eclipses that you use on the camera. And then if it's cloudy, you can still, like I said, observe what's going on around you. Now, I wanted to go back to my hometown of the National Weather Service and look to see if they put any information out about the eclipse and what type of weather we would expect during April 8th. The normal high temperature is 57 degrees, which would be at the time that the eclipse will occur. And the highest we've seen is 83 degrees. So we could see a wide range of temperatures, because we've had temperatures as cold as 27 degrees like today. It never even hit 30 degrees today? And here we are almost the end of March. So, and then unfortunately about half the time it rained. And what does that mean? Clouds. So that's not good. And what they also did was they showed in the path of totality what the percentage of years on April 8th was it cloudy. And about 60 to about 80% of the time we had cloudy skies. So I'm sorry. I mean, we live here around the Great Lakes. They're wonderful to have to help modify our weather, but unfortunately they bring clouds as well. And they also looked at on El Nino years, which is what we're experiencing right now, and it's pretty much about the same as far as the cloud cover. Now, we are waning away from El Nino, and it looks like we may have a La Nina developing for the next winter, which means another mild winter for those of you that don't like snow. Maybe not quite as mild as this year, but similar to the previous, 2 or 3 years. So there you have it. You heard it here first, right? So when is the next total solar eclipse going to occur here in Ohio? And once again, for those of you that are still here in 2099, you will be able to experience it in September 14th, 2099. And this will be the path of the total eclipse from the northwest to the southeast across the state of Ohio. And that's all I have. Does anybody have any questions? Oh, there you are. Okay, yes.
So I started to hear talks about this comet that we might also see.
Yes, apparently, I don't, you'll have to look it up yourself because I did hear a little bit about it, that there are going to be other celestial bodies within the same area that where the eclipse will occur. So yes, it might be visible. There will be some planets. So yeah, I would say look that up. I forgot, that's one thing I did forget to look at. Oh, she was, for those of you in the back, she was asking, there's a comet that may be visible during the eclipse. So I said, just basically, I don't really know much about that in detail, so you could Google it or look it up online. Yes?
Wear these special glasses over your regular glasses?
Wear them over?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, as long as your eyes are completely covered and protected and no sunlight is hitting your eyes directly. Yeah.
How do you know that you've gotten the correct glasses?
That's the big question. And personally, I would not use them. I would use the other methods just to be safe. Like the guy said, it's not worth losing your eyesight over. So, yes.
Where did we get the glasses today?
That we'll have to ask the ladies here. When
I didn't hear the question.
she wants to know where to get them.
Right here.
Oh, she's got them right here, and then.
$3 a pair.
So. Yes.
There is supposed to be a new moon on the 8th. How will that, if at all, affect the eclipse?
Well, the new moon, she said there's supposed to be a new moon on that day. Well, the new moon basically is you can't see it. So because you're on the back side, so that would be the sun, the light will be on the opposite side, and we're going to be on the dark side as it passes in front of us, between the earth and the sun. Any other questions? Yes.
In the 1960s, probably about the same time that guy was talking about, I was in the Cub Scouts, and I can remember we took a piece of glass and we put it over top of a candle, and it smoked up the lens, and we watched something through that.
No, he was saying that they smoked a piece of glass to filter the sunlight. That will not stop the radiation from coming through. So that's not advisable. Using the, like he was saying, they used the film. Nope, not going to work. So, yes.
Do you have the number for the safe glasses?
Yes.
We found them on Amazon, so I want to make sure.
It is ISO 12312-2. One more time? Okay. ISO Indigo Sierra Oscar 12312-2. Yep. And I did work with the ladies that I was talking to before this, and they did double check to make sure they said that they were the ones. So.
You know where it said it?
Yes.
I remember too, partial eclipses and everything that, like, I guess at totality, that there's actually like some amplification of the sunlight, or as it approaches, that it's worse than the whole duration. If you understand what I'm saying? Is there a time?
Are you saying that there's a time that you might be able to look at it, but it still amplifies the light? I think what the problem is that it's not as bright, so you're going to want to look at it because it's not blinding you, but the damage, even just a little sliver around the outside, is enough to damage your eyes, the retinas, and that's the last thing you want to do. So, yes.
It's
still take all the pictures we want if we don't look at the sun, right?
Yeah, as long as your eyes are not in the view of looking at it, if you can point it at the sun without looking at it. But they have special filters where you can get a better picture too.
Is there any issue about the reflection coming off of your, like, say you take like a selfie, and so it's, you're seeing the sun come down at your camera. Is there any problem with the reflection coming off of your lens to you?
That I don't know. I can't answer that one. So, sorry.
Right.
Yes.
Yes, I read on the internet that it's okay to look at it when it's in totality. Now, I don't know if it's true or not.
She asked if it's okay to look at it during totality. Now, some of the things I've read says that you can take your glasses and look at it, but you immediately put them back on as soon as you see any light. Once again, I'm not advocating for that. I wouldn't even look at it, period, just to be safe. I mean, you got one shot at eyesight. You don't want to lose it. That's why, and I hate to say this, but I hope it's cloudy that day, just so I know everybody's safe. I want everybody to be safe. I'm sorry. I hope you don't know where I live if it is cloudy. Anybody else? Well, I want to thank you for, I knew it was going to be a great crowd, and thank you for taking this time to come out. I know there's presentations every mile down the road, just like a dollar store. But I appreciate you coming out. Be safe, enjoy it, and have a great time.